To improve your results with suppliers in China, here are the top 10 questions you should be asking your suppliers in order to get the best results. So number one, are you a trading company or are you a factory? Now, to be honest, the answer to this question doesn't really matter. I've worked with plenty of good trading companies and I've worked with plenty of good factories. There is this notion that, okay, I have to work directly with the factory because the trading companies add on their own margin. But in actual case, sometimes the trading company offer you a very good service for that margin that they're adding on. Sometimes the factory doesn't necessarily have an export license, so they have to go through a trading company, or sometimes the trading company is just very familiar with a lot of different factories, so they know the strengths of each factory and they know the right place to place that order. And sometimes a trading company also specializes in that category, so they can also reach out to factories making different items, and a trading company can be your one-stop shop rather than having to deal with many different factories. But there are advantages working with a factory directly as well. So like I said, there's not a right or a wrong answer to work with a trading company or a factory, but it's important for you to understand which one you're working with so you know what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. Question number two, where is your factory located? Now, it's important to ask this question because you want to know, are the office and the factory located together? Because quite often the factory can be based in the rural part of China, whereas the office can be in the city. So you make an appointment to go and visit your factory, but you're actually going to the office, and when you wanted to go and see the factory, you're like, where is it? And they're like, oh, it's a 4-hour plane journey or a 4-hour train journey into the country, but you've only set aside that day for visiting the factory. So it's very important to know where they're located. And as well as knowing where they're located, you also want to know which port do they ship from, because if you're dealing with multiple different suppliers, you might consider that, okay, they all ship from the same port, and if they ship from the same port, then you can consolidate your orders, so you're not just sending full containers, but you can do half a container from one supplier and half a container from another supplier, and then merge those two together and ship it out as one full container, so you do maximize on your shipping costs as well. But you can ask which port do you ship from, and also FOB, which port. FOB just stands for freight on board, and that's a typical pricing term that they're going to cover. The factory will cover the price of the goods from their factory, the unit cost, and delivering it to your port. So when they give you an FOB price, it just means from that port is where they're going to deliver the goods to, and they cover the insurance of the freight until it gets to the port. So you're only covering it from the port to your destination. That's the FOB price. Question number three, how many workers do you have in your factory? Now, this is important to understand because I don't know who you're doing business with and what type of capacity you're doing business with. I've worked with some factories which have only got 50 workers, and I've worked with some factories which have got 1,500 or 2,000 workers. The factory which has 50 workers might be a lot more flexible to your needs, give you lower MOQs, let you try lots of different colors, whereas the one which has got 2,000 workers might have much better systems in place, much better quality control, much better faster lead times. So you just want to know who you're working with and what is the capacity of the factory that you're working with. Question number four I like to ask is, which markets are you supplying? And as a result of which markets, which countries are you supplying specifically? Because it's important to consider that if a factory is placing their attention in the African market, then probably the quality standards aren't as high as in the American market. Or if they're supplying maybe the Japanese and the Korean market, maybe they're going for really high-end products. Or if they're supplying the South American market, maybe they don't really pay attention to testing and things like that, and they're making slightly cheaper products. But if they're supplying in, Western Europe, like Germany, France, UK, then maybe all the regulations and all the product quality that they're doing is to a high standard. Okay, and if they're also supplying in the USA, then hopefully they understand your market very well, and they know the types of testing and regulations that they need to pass as well. So that's not going to be alien to them. When you ask them to pass for a certain quality standard, if they supply your market and they supply reputable customers, then you should be able to pass to the highest standard. Then question number five, a lead on to that, I like to ask, which brands do you supply? And then as a lead on to that, who is your biggest customer? Because you could ask a supplier, which brands do you supply? And they could ring off all the biggest brands in the world. But if you say, who is your biggest customer? It's like, where's their attention going? It's kind of like the 80-20 rule. They could supply a brand like the North Face, but they might have done one order 7 years ago. But that's not what they're focused on. That's not where their strengths are. But if you know what brands that they're actually supplying, and you go and research those brands, and you find those brands either on their own website, or you go to their stores, you find them on Amazon, you read the reviews, you find out really what are the quality levels of those brands. And if that's a brand that you align with and you associate with, and you very much like their products, then that's also a factory that you'd be happy working with as well. Okay, question number 6. Don't know why I did this. I think this is in Chinese, this means 6. So my hand signals have gone Chinese a little bit. Okay, question number 6. Have you supplied any retailers or department stores? Now this is very important to understand, because if they have supplied a retail store, let's say they've supplied a Walmart, a Target, a Bed Bath & Beyond, that means that they're supplying very large quantities, which means that they've managed to engineer the product down to the lowest possible cost it can be. Now, if you go into any retail store like a Walmart or a Target or a Bed Bath & Beyond, you can see that the prices of these products are generally quite low because of the scale that they're doing, and that means a factory also can benefit from those economies of scale, but so can you if you can sort of piggyback off of their orders. So what I like to do is ask my manufacturers, hey, if you're placing an order, if you're getting an order from a retailer, let me know, give me a call, and I might piggyback and I might place an order off the back of that. Now I'm not going to copy the product and make it the exact same, but what I will do is, if they're ordering materials for 100,000 products, so I'm going to make sure my product is the same material, so I can get the raw material price at the same cost that they're getting it for as well. But again, this is the type of question that you can only really ask once you've built up a relationship with your manufacturer, and that you have some orders going, because the first time you approach a manufacturer, if you ask them a question like this, they'll tell you to get lost. They're not going to open up and tell you all this information. So only really ask this type of question once you've got a bit of leverage in the relationship as well, and they want to help satisfy you, because they want your business to grow as a result of the orders that you've been placing to them. Now, question number 7, do you supply any brands selling on Amazon? Now, this is quite important to understand, because it's not a right or a wrong thing if a factory is supplying someone on Amazon, but it's good to know for your reference, because if they do supply someone selling on Amazon, then they understand like the labeling, they understand like how urgent we need our shipments, they understand that the product quality has to be great. If there's a bad batch, there's going to be a lot of negative reviews, which is going to affect the ranking, which is going to affect future orders. So if they have an understanding of how Amazon works, then that's a bonus to you. And again, if they don't deal with any Amazon customers, that's also good, because then they don't, other people aren't also placing their orders to the same factory, so you aren't competing on price for the same products. So again, you just want to improve your understanding of what the factory is actually capable of. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but it's good for you to know. Now, another good question to ask, number 8, is, has your factory completed any third-party audits? Now, this is a question that the factory is going to be like, okay, they really care about quality, because a third-party audit is done when you really want to be sure and confirm that this factory is capable of manufacturing products to the highest standard, but also that their factory is run to a high standard as well. So if you ask about this, it means you care about the quality that factory is then putting out. And also, when you work with big retailers, it's essential. You can't manufacture for a retailer or a license without providing audit documents of the factory to your customer, to your retail customer. So if you ask for these things, they know that you're looking for the top suppliers, and they're going to step their game up a little bit. Now, if they have it, they should be able to just send you the certificates. It could be BSCI, it could be SEDEX, it could be a Walmart audit, it could be a Disney audit. Some of these big companies, they do their own audits, and once they've done it, the factory already have the paperwork and they can send it to you. But very important, if you do get a factory's audit form, make sure you check the dates on the form, because the audit could have been done in 2008. You're looking for something which has been done recently, within the last like 18 months or something like that. But definitely check that, and when you're working with the good factories or the bad ones. Now, if a factory doesn't have their audit, it doesn't mean they're not capable of passing, but if they have done it, they should definitely be able to send you for reference what they've done so far. Then question number 9, one of my favorites. What new products have you been working on? Now, we all pride ourselves on developing products ourselves, but bear in mind, while we develop products here in our offices and in our companies, so do the factories. The factories also like to work on new products, because they want to get orders from all their customers and all their clients. Now, they're not going to show these products on Alibaba, they're not going to show these products front and center at the Canton Fair, but if you have a good relationship with your manufacturer, they're going to show you what they're working on, and before it even comes to market, before it's even available, they're going to let you know what they're building, because essentially they want to sell that stuff to you, and if you're a good customer, well, they're going to show you what they're working on, so you can already be ahead of the market. You can start to think about your marketing and your promotion and your ads and all that sort of stuff, advertising the features of this new product which nothing else on the market has, based on the knowledge of the factory. So ask them what they have been working on. And then finally, question number 10, what I like to ask as well is, when would be the best time to visit your factory? Now, if you're like me, you go to China regularly. I always like to go to China. I like to visit my manufacturers. I like to do my business face to face. I like to build relationships. But even if you have no intention of going to China, you should always ask, when is the best time to visit your factory? Because that shows that you're serious about visiting. Now, the factories really respect the buyers who come to their place of business, who have made the long journey from wherever they are in the world to come to China, to come to their factory. And you know by the Chinese hospitality that they take you out for nice dinners and entertainment and things like that, and the factory tour, that they really, really appreciate you coming over. Now, if you ask when would be the best time to visit your factory, now they're a little bit on edge. You're like, okay, cool, if this guy's going to come and visit us, we better make sure we give him with the best service, as well as we better make sure we didn't lie about any of the other stuff that we told him. Because if we told him we've got 150 workers in our factory and he's coming to visit and he sees we've only got 50, then he's going to think, what else have we been lying about? So if you show the intent that you plan on visiting the factory, and it doesn't need to be the next month, you know, you plan out your trips a year in advance. You can say in the next year when it would be the best time to visit your factory. And then the other good thing is they give you information about when is their high season, when is their low season, when is the factory busy, when is it not busy, when is the Chinese New Year holiday, when are all their other holidays, like their Dragon Boat holidays and all these sorts of things. So that again just shows your seriousness with the manufacturer.